A little bit weird. I kind of got used to going there 3 times a week. I have to write something for you next. He's got an art exhibition coming up in Los Angeles. And we will be performing with some very interesting guests. Yes, it turns out she is a fan. You never know who is a fan. We didn't know Marc Jacobs was either. He, Sebastian, used to do body piercing and tattoos, and at that time he was the only person in Britain who did body art and tattoos. It was a nice ceremony, wasn't it? You got lucky, missus. They are not normally like that. Well, we got more than 1,200 gifts or offerings, which is pretty good. Filled every single space we had designated with some leftover which were stored. We don't go to art exhibitions that much anymore. We used to go a lot more with Jay. We felt that galleries are usually so elitist and sterile and removed from people's experience that there is no warmth, embracing or welcoming into the art and into the stories. And that is because most of the art you see doesn't have a story. It's all just look at me, I've got a formula and I can do it 20 times and sell it all. That is of no interest to us. The point of the show is that everything can be sacred and that everything is potentially special and every person is too. Having people bring gifts was one way that we thought we could express that, and make it simple and not too intimidating to people off the street who didn't know anything about me or it. It really resonated with people, even people not far off from my age, but people from high school to people in their 70s came and talked to me about giving things. A couple of people said, well, that section just has a bus ticket in it, but how would you know what the significance is of that bus ticket? That might be the ticket that they got to go to the funeral of their mother. Or the one that took them to the person that they are in love with. Or it could be the one that took them to the hospital when they discovered they had cancer. You don't know what the significance is, and that is the whole point, that everything is potentially significant and that everything has a story. We used to work with a shaman who would tell us to go out, come back in a half an hour and tell him what the streets told us. Let him know what you learned from what you saw. You would look at the world so different straight away. In the 80s, we used to go on tour in a school bus, and it broke down in the middle of the salt flats in Utah, miles and miles from anything, and it was 110 degrees. We had the kids. Tom was our driver. We had stopped right before we hit the desert to fill the tank with gas. So we said, it should work. Why has it stopped? Our first question to him was, did you definitely fill the tank up? And he said, yes, of course I did. I said that it didn't make sense, and he said that it was a piece of shit bus, and that we should just get rid of the bus. We got someone to hitchhike to the nearest town with the kids so the kids could be safe at a diner. While he was gone and looking for a mechanic, we walked out to the desert and squatted in the desert trying to descend into my head. As we were squatting, looking at the salt flats, we see ants. There are little holes that are their nest. They are going off and coming back with bits of food. Going back out, coming back with bits of food. We thought that is their fuel. He was lying. He didn't put the petrol in, that is what is wrong with the bus. No fuel. By the time we walked back to the bus, he had reappeared. I asked him again if he had out the petrol in and he stuttered and said no, I was scared to tell you. I asked him if he realized he suggested throwing the bus away and breaking the engine down. I made him hitchhike away again to get some petrol. But that was an example of when that exercise worked for me in a particular way. Yes, we use this when we do workshops with people. It makes people stop and think, which is always a good thing. To hesitate. What have I got in my purse? This is what a lot of people did, when they attended try to alter everything at the Reuben. They looked at what they had and thought, what do I have that means something to me? Instead of thinking about how they only have $6 left and one ride on the subway. Just on that level alone, it is a great way to reprogram people into looking, perception. We have this saying, change the way to perceive. If you can change your memory, you can change the past by perceiving things differently. That is what all art should be doing, encouraging people to perceive the world differently, more completely, more meticulously. There are always ways to rethink our senses and the information that we receive. Well, that's not really how it works. What happens is that you develop wisdom and knowledge, And as your way of living life changes, you look back and realize the flaws in what you have done and maybe why it failed. And then, when something becomes a crisis again, you can do things differently. There you go. If you don't remember the past, you are doomed to repeat it. There are a lot of different ways that you can take that phrase, and again, it can be taken as a way to remind you, but to literally re/mind you, to give you another mind. Look back and think how you are looking at the world, how you are reacting to the world, what you are giving to the world, what you are receiving from the world around you. Constantly analyze, are you doing something out of habit? Are you doing something because it is what is expected of you? Am I doing this because I am afraid? Why am I doing this? Why am I choosing to do things in this particular way in this particular time? All those things can be rearranged once you start making little maps to your past to keep alert. There is a really easy exercise for that, which we have used. We had one long relationship with Cozy Fanny Tootie, then we had one long relationship to the children's mother, and both times when it started to fall apart, we tried to rescue it. It was just more miserable that the painful part lasted longer. So when it happened again, we just thought, well, whatever it was that happened the last time, we will just do the exact opposite, because it didn't work the way we were doing it the last 3 times. So if we rang up and said please, we won't ring. If we tried to justify why they should love me, we won't say anything. And it was like that. What did we do before? We will do the opposite. And not only did it end the pain really quickly, it saved the relationship. But you have to be really strict with yourself, because it is in your nature to do your mistakes again. And sometimes we would sit there, fidgeting. Do things differently and consciously. The other thing is, as Lady J would say, be fearless. Eddie just said yes. He jumped off. Not ask what if. Unconditional surrender. Once you've done the unconditional surrender, you can't fail. There is nothing complex. There are no games, no secrets. 100% unconditional surrender is the only way anything can work in the long term. After people watch the film The Ballad of Genesis and Lady J, a lot of people have told me that they have always been scared of being hurt, so they have held back a bit, but they have still gotten hurt. We say, of course you do, because you hold back a bit. You're probably going to get hurt anyway, so why not just say fuck it and jump? A lot of relationships can't work in a really long-term way, but there can be so much joy from a fully committed unconditional love. We remembered you straight away. There you go. Start looking at yourself differently. How old are you? Oh wow, you look much younger. Well, you are going through your Saturn return, aren't you? 27 is very hard, that is why so many people die at 27. New York is very easy to get sucked into. We've all been there. All of us have, in different ways. Do you have any more questions, my dear? Otherwise it is going to cost you $100. In all honesty, with the phones at the museum, people rang up and said that we got them through the worst part of their life, or changed their life, or inspired them, or they wouldn't be who they are without what we have done. This happens, there is no way to deny that. In my case, it just gives me an ever deeper sense of responsibility to be more truthful and to keep on giving back however we can. Sharing what we have found or what we have experienced. It used to make me feel embarrassed. Why are they saying that to me? I know nothing. We still don't think that we know anything particularly important, but at least we have a bank of experiences. A lot of these experiences are more extreme, intimate and scathing. That is what we have as a currency that we can share, and so we share it as much as we can and as clearly as we can. Trying to say things more clearly each time is the difficult part. It's hard not to say things the same exact way every single time. Sometimes we fall into that. We get asked the same questions. When did you name it industrial music? We have been asked this 7,000 times. In any way, it is good to know that we have been helpful to people. Jay did help me to become more compassionate. And vice versa, really. We were really good for each other in that way, and it got more positive as time went by, which is unusual and wonderful. We feel it is a responsibility to share anything that can be helpful and that all bands should be thinking that way, as well as all artists and writers. How can what I do make this world a better place? Psychic TV is unusual in that way. I am sure you have noticed. A majority of our fans are really nice people, really caring people who really think about what it is to be alive and existing in this world, and what was it can both be bearable for them and hopefully more rewarding. So there is a spiritual and familial side to Psychic TV. The band itself, we get along so well. We are like a little family. It sounds corny but it's true. Not like a family of little boys who get drunk every night and try to find girls, but an actual family that loves and cares for each other. When things happen to any of us, negative, awful, we've got each other to support us through it. When Lady J dropped her body, everyone rallied around immediately with full love and compassion. When Alice lost her son, we have had tragedies happen to our band, but we take care of each other. We try to look after each other's emotions as much as we can. I wish everyone were that way, instead of trying to be famous and rich. That is not on our agenda. At all. The important stuff is to try and make the world a better place and help people to be less afraid. Less afraid of being generous with each other, sharing with each other, loving each other. All those things people hesitate over. I want to leave a legacy of less fear.